Everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Mind Body Health Podcast. And yet again, we're going to have a great episode where I hope to arm you with some more tools that will help you in seizing control of your life. And remember, the point I always stress is it's about taking personal responsibility for your life and then making the best of it, because we all have unlimited potential. It's incredible what we can accomplish, but it comes down to action as well. So make sure, again, what you learn, you put into action. You pick the pieces that are relevant to you, which I'm sure you get a lot from this, because we're going to talk a lot about mindset in this particular episode. But take the bits that are relevant to you, that resonate with you, and then make sure they put into action. Because it's like all knowledge. People focus on acquiring so much knowledge, but if you don't implement it and use it, it's absolutely worthless. So make sure, again, you implement and take action, okay? And I always drill this message into you all the time. And that's why as well, I always get specific types of guests on who are action takers, who live that talk. And, they've all gone through their own journeys, and every journey's got ups and downs. And, this journey that we'll be sharing with our guests today will be no different. So today I'm honored and delighted to have Adrian Kelly on. He's the author of The Success Complex. He started off as a criminal solicitor. He's been an entrepreneur of various types of businesses. He runs Dragon Den projects and schools. He does a load of stuff. He juggles a lot, but he's doing everything very well. But he also, as I said, has a journey, and he's had tough times as well as the good times. But the key thing is, again, your mindset around the tough times. And again, this is something you've learned if you're a regular follower of the podcast. So, Adrian, great to have you on. How are we today?
I'm good, Dave. Great to be on. Thanks for the invite.
And thanks for your time, because look, you're a busy guy. As you're juggling lots of different things. So, it's about trying to prioritize time. And I'm delighted you prioritize this bit of time with us to share your journey, importantly, and again, all the wisdom you've acquired in that time.
And thanks, Dave. Excuse the fact that I'm in a car at the moment. I'm not driving. I'm parked.
That's the important
your listeners or your viewers.
That's it, yeah. Well, that's it. You're on the go. I said you're busy, so I guess we appreciate that you're taking this time anyway. So I always start, whenever I get a guest on, the most important thing I always feel is, to let's see the journey, like all raw and authentic, and see the journey and the ups and downs, so the listener can learn from that, as well as, see themselves in various aspects of it. Because unfortunately, a lot of time when people see someone they perceive successful, they have them on a pedestal. What I like to always do is show, look, whether it's me, you, whoever, we're just ordinary people, but we're taking action. And we also learn from the tough experiences in life. And life is a roller coaster. So everyone's going to have good experiences. Everyone's going to have challenging experiences. Against how you react to the challenging ones is what's really key. And I'm sure, and I know that that's a big part of your journey as well. So go back as far as is relevant to you and share any kind of stories and learnings and tips and so on along the way.
Well, I agree with everything you've just said, Dave. By the way, I think that's a great way to sum it up. We shouldn't put anybody in a pedestal. It's a lot of it comes down to graft and just sticking with it and muddling through and and staying the course in terms of the direction you've chosen. That's I think that from people I've interviewed, research I've done, from my own life experience, that's the only truth I can really vouch for here.
Yeah, for sure. It's all building resilience.
That's
Like
right.
as David Goggins would say, like the mental calluses. It's all about developing those mental calluses. We have to be willing
That's
to
right.
and open to, and I suppose not pick the easier option of falling behind excuses and blame, which unfortunately too many people do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose to take it back very briefly, I'm Irish. I grew up in County Monaghan, which is right on the border between North and South Ireland. So I grew up in the Republic of Ireland. My house was about a mile from the border. And when I was
Mm-hmm.
born in the late 70s, born in 1976, obviously it was the height of the Troubles, and it was a very militarized area that I grew up in. There was 5 roads out of the town. Sorry, there was 8 roads out of the town. 5 of them were blown up. So you could only get out of the town 3 roads, and that was to drive straight back to the south, or straight south, and then do a U-turn back around to a checkpoint. So it was an interesting experience reflecting on it, but it was absolute normality back then, in terms of helicopters and guns and army and police and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you
So
grew up, that was just your norm, like it was nothing.
totally. And
Yeah.
somebody asked me, God, is that something that was weird? Well, you have no point of reference for anything else when you're that age, of course.
Yeah,
And I'm sure it was weird if you had been a bit older and saw what it was like beforehand, and then see it change. That would have been probably more traumatic.
for
But
sure.
yeah, gradually things relaxed, and there's no trace of it there today really at all from my kids or the next generations. There's you wouldn't know any of that was there. And but as a starting point, I think it's one thing that's evident from my childhood was seeing how resilient people were to that stuff. People just got on with their daily lives and were relatively good humored and optimistic, even with those experiences happening on our doorstep. So, the human condition is by its nature very resilient, I think, and and we probably are capable of a lot more than we think we are, and that's the essence of the book, and that's what I hope to bring out, and the message that people will get. It's often people just don't know where to start, or don't know quite, how to navigate the beginnings of a journey. Because once you start to gain momentum and get a few wins under our belt, it does get easier. I think it does.
It becomes more, I suppose, like easier to a degree, yeah, but nearly more normalized and routine and like that.
Yeah.
It's momentum, but it's starting off is the hard part and take those few steps. No different than starting out working out even. The first week or so is the tough part. The pain is there and so on. But after 3-4 weeks, it's a case of why wasn't I doing this for the last 10 years? And the same applies to business, same as everything.
Exactly, totally. So I wasn't a great kid in school. My mother died when I was 10. That had a profound effect on my life. And I kind of went into a tailspin for a couple of years, and particularly in secondary school. So I didn't do a great leaving cert, and then I ended up repeating the leaving cert. I worked in a lot of factories around that time, turkey factories, chicken factories, wood factories. But that was a great experience in the early 90s because it was tough, demanding work, but you got real experience meeting real people and earning money. And also learning what I absolutely didn't want to do, which was work on a factory on the kiln floor or something.
Sometimes
so
that's as important as 8 to know, Adrian, isn't it? That's
right.
It's like even the modern generation. They nearly only want to do the things they want to do, and if they do a job they don't necessarily like, to just leave it, or they get given out or whatever. Even when it's justified. It's like they don't want any friction when you need to, again, like that, like you did, you experience for you what was the worst from a professional point of view. Go, I definitely don't want to do this. Give you that bit of drive to find something you did.
That's right, and it was a simple thing like, they used to be cold, wet, you're wearing wellies, all the kind of, I'd be a kind of very kinesthetic person, so I always describe things about how I felt about them in terms of my experience. And I said the worst case scenario, if I get an office job, at least it's dry and warm, at a base level. So that proved to be good motivation. I went back and repeated the leaving cert, which a lot of people did back then. People don't do that as much anymore because you have stepping stone courses to get where you want to go. But back then, if you didn't get the points to go to college, you went and worked in Grove Turkeys, and that was you done, or the building site or wherever. So went back, did that, and I remember speaking to the careers teacher, and I talked about law, and I also talked about being a pilot, which was like most kids.
I was the same, actually. I want to be a pilot, but I was told I was colorblind, so that was the end of that.
Oh no, my careers teacher said to me, "Well, you either need to have loads of brains or loads of money," and just looked at me like, and you've neither. pretty much. Didn't use those words, but that was the intonation.
So drop those dreams, basically.
Exactly. But anyway, I persevered because I said, I felt maths was a real problem for me, understanding maths in particular. So I went to college and I got into legal studies, and I did a certificate, which was 2 years, diploma, which was 1 year, and then a degree. And it all, which interesting in itself, it all developed like stepping stones that hadn't been there. So back in the mid-90s, law was a closed shop. It was very much, you go to UCD, you go to Trinity, you go to the big universities, and if you don't go there, you're never going to be a solicitor. And but I just took one step at a time, and I described it to somebody. It's a bit like driving at night. You only have to see to the end of the road. And then it's you only have to see to the next junction. And every time I got to a junction, like 2 years, the certificate I did in Waterford, there was a diploma. So that was a new diploma. It's just started. Do you want to do the diploma? Then there's a new degree, and it's first year of the degree. So we were the first year to do the diploma, first year to do the degree. So it's like they magically appeared. But sometimes when you push, you don't always have to see to the end of the journey, any journey. It's about knowing why you're on that journey and why it's right for you. And and very often opportunities appear where you least expect them.
That's the key, in being open to them. It's like that. Like, there's opportunities all the time. It's just whether a person's open to seeing them, and also are they ready to take action. It's like for you there, if you can call it luck, but also was timing and resilience too. And you not just listen to the career guidance teacher, you go, no, I'm going to find a way, and then you found a way, and things did happen from a timer perspective. But if you just take a notice of what the career guidance teacher said, you would never have done them anyway. You wouldn't even have known they existed.
That's right, totally. So, so I was highly motivated because I got like 190 points in the Leaving Cert first time round. I got 330 the second time round, which was a big improvement from where I was. It still wasn't, comparatively fantastic by today's standards,
Yeah.
but it was enough to start with. And then I worked extremely hard in college, and I remember I was really the only person who actually wanted to be on the course. Everybody seemed to have ended up in this course because they didn't get some other course, and
Yeah, yeah.
but I was always very open about that. I said,
Was
no,
that
this is what
specifically law, Adrian? Yeah, it was a branch of law, just diploma, yeah?
it was, but most people did that course because they wanted to become a legal secretary or executive.
Okay.
Not many of them, if any, wanted to go on and become solicitors.
Yeah,
They didn't
yeah.
see they didn't see that path where I kind of harbored that ambition from the start. I wanted to see how far I could take this, how far I could go with it, until I was told I can't go any further.
Yeah,
Which
like you
which
saw
right,
it's just literally a foot
yeah,
in the door, really.
yeah, and I kept going, and nobody ever ultimately stopped me. So
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
you know so I did very well. I worked very hard, and I had to re-educate myself. I bought a spelling book and grammar book and studied. The stuff that I was missing at school. I really re-educated myself on. I didn't do Irish for
Brilliant.
the Leaving Cert because the principal came in one day and said, "Listen, you guys aren't going to college anyway. Don't even bother doing Irish." So I just didn't do it.
Jeez.
So it meant I couldn't get into university anyway. So I
Yeah,
had to go to the IT route, which is the Institute of Technologies in Ireland, which is more kind of an engineering kind of route for your listeners. And so I did that. Then I had to go back because you had to pass an Irish exam to become a solicitor. So I did the Tastis course for teachers at night. I did that for 6 months in my fourth year. So there's always a way. I think if you're motivated enough, people will also go out of their way to help you. So I think that people like to help people who want to help themselves, who see
mm,
that they're hard workers and doers, and I've always found that. So got a 2-1 degree, and then I was offered a master's in Queen's. I didn't take it. I went and did another qualification, the company secretarial route in London online. I just did those kind of remote exams in Dublin, and then trained as a solicitor, qualified as a solicitor, and then by the time some of my fellow students were coming through from college, some of them, it came through a couple of years later. I was actually lecturing in the college where they were training solicitors. I was there part time.
yeah.
Like, and I was the internal examiner then for the litigation exam, or internal or external, one or the other. I think it was external, in 2010. So, that's kind of a prestigious enough position to be the actual correcting the exams for solicitors that are coming through that are qualifying. So it's amazing how far you can come, and once you're willing to work and push hard enough. Um, and then I went on and practiced for 6 years as a criminal solicitor. Really enjoyed it, learned loads, particularly about people, and seeing people at their lowest ebb, and trying to do a good job for people that were in unfortunate circumstances. There were very few bad people I encountered. Not even mostly people that did dumb things or were unlucky and had poor childhoods, etc.
The
And
environment they were kind of in, I suppose, as well. They'd
yeah,
fallen into the norm of the environments they lived in.
that's right. And so we got some good results for people. I was lucky enough to work in a very good firm. I learned loads. And then the recession came, and the government decided to cut all that by about, they cut it all by a quarter. I think it's still cut down in terms of the fees you can earn as a criminal solicitor. So it really was, it decimated that profession because everybody that was doing conveyancing decided they were now criminal solicitors because they'd seen that there was work there,
Mm.
and they flooded the courts. So it meant that now, where there was 5 solicitors, there were 25 solicitors looking for the same work, and also the fees weren't the same. So a friend of mine had came up with an invention. He wanted me to help lodge a patent for him, and I ended up then setting up a business with him. We raised lots of money and went into the renewable energy business. Ultimately, we employed 30 people in that business, and I left law for, almost 10 years. And then I exited that business in 2017, and I had a junction, I had a decision to make whether to go back into law or not. And I decided I'd prefer not to go back into practice, but rather work as a consultant, which was cleaner work. And I could use the experience I had in business, raising money and doing whatever in business, coupled with my years of practice to work with big businesses, helping them unravel legal problems and get the right advice. And then Brexit came along. I set up a business to cater for that, and that was very successful actually. And then COVID came along, and ultimately, like everybody else, I had time to reflect. and I decided to start researching this concept of self-improvement. How we can push ourselves well beyond where we think we're capable of, and what that would look like as a book. And I came up with the concept of the success complex, which is the title of the book. And ultimately, the context, as I see it, the success complex is what your complex that's stopping you being successful, like a complex about heights or small spaces, something you can't quite put your finger on that's preventing you achieving what you need to achieve. And so I wrote it over a period of 3 years, and now I'm back. I'm doing a master's degree in performance psychology. I'm going into the second year of that at the moment. So lots and lots of research, interviews, writing, and very interesting conversations. And I've had to say one benefit of writing the book is it now opens the door to have these sorts of conversations with you, Dave,
Yeah.
and various people. You just find a point of contact to talk about these things with people, even in the most casual of circumstances, no matter what people bring up. Usually people have the itch to have to scratch is, oh my God, I wish I could do more with my lot, and that kind of does ring true from conversations, even tangentially. And I usually try and unpick that a little bit and explore what's on their mind, and then try and bring the conversation around to how they might achieve more for themselves. And that's what the book is about, a framework. Hopefully that helps people deliver that for themselves.
Yeah, and that's why it's such a good topic, because it is something that's relevant to literally everybody. And like that, unfortunately, there are so many people who, they need to get out of their own way. Whether for certain potential people it's just laziness, not taking action, but then there's also a lot of people who I suppose have bought into an element of societal conditioning of, this is your lot, just stay with your lot, and that's it. Go back even again to your career guidance teacher. You put 100 people in that same position at your age then, probably 99, 98 of them definitely would have just taken that on board and gone a different route. Whereas again, your mentality was, no, I'm finding some way around this, and you found a way around it. So it's definitely a good conversation opener because it's relevant to everyone. And also success, like there's so many different areas of life tend to have success. And obviously people think of it as just professionally or money, but success in relationships is important, success in your health and well-being is important, so it is something that's relevant and transferable to every area of your life then as well. So it's great that way. And it's just giving people that little bit of spark and hope. And that's probably what like you said, you found that, people feel they can't get it or don't think they can, but in a brief few-minute conversation with yourself, that you can literally leave them going with a bit of hope.
Well, that's right, and give them maybe some little bit of a direction in terms of where they can read more or whatever else. I always try and give a free copy of my book away to somebody every day if I can. I usually have it in the boot of the car or something. Say, listen, hang on, let me just, and you might write a little message, maybe have a look at page whatever. And I love that because it's a gift for somebody, and whether they ever read it or not. I mean, it's on Audible as well, so not everybody reads books really, or has the time to read books, but they can listen to it in the car. I read it myself in the recording, so they can listen to it in the car when they're traveling or whatever. So it's accessible. It's accessible.
That's the power we have, Adrian. It's like that. Even you just giving that free book. Like for most people, they just need a spark, and they need again something to give them a bit of a spark and belief. And you giving that free book again, some will have got it and they've never ever opened it, and they might have the intention to, but they haven't. But the ones who did and they got into it, almost definitely they'll have gone somewhere with it because that gave them that spark. And even just you showing an interest in them. Because what I would notice from people over the years is a lot of people's biggest problem is, self-worth is a massive thing, but also feeling like unacknowledged, unworthy. They don't really contribute much in the world. They're just, what am I even here for? When everyone has the power to, like we would have said earlier on, even everyone can become an author, just how many do. Like it's actually a tiny percentage of people. So that's the power that we have. And all of us, it's not just, again, we're both authors, we've done lots of different things, entrepreneurs and so on, but someone who's not done any of those things has the power to impact someone's life as well. And it's just people need to realize that power. And that's where, because we can inspire them to do that.
Yeah. It's a very sad thought, isn't it? This thought about why am I here and what do I offer anybody? It really is. And it's, and sometimes no matter how many people, whatever way you say it, it still doesn't land with people. People need to be at the right stage of their life to hear that message as well. And I think that's why you have to help them get there themselves. It's not a case of throwing a bunch of information at anybody. It's about, listen, okay, that's quite interesting that you've said that, Do you want to read more about what I suggested in terms of maybe things to look at? And then, that's you're just opening the door that way, and it has to
Yeah.
be them that takes the step through it.
Yeah, exactly. Like people have to make their own
Mm,
decisions at the end of the day. And like
mm,
we're all just messengers. And at the end of the day, it's like,
mm,
what are we doing? We're sharing our experience. You
yeah.
had your tough times over your journey. Just sometimes it was literally you motivating yourself. I'm sure there's other times that there's something else was carrying you or lifting you when you were just about to drop. We all have had that in our lives.
Mm,
There's always some situations of both. So like if each of us has the power then to give that person that spark or that lift, it's for us to go and do that then. And
that's
then
right.
we're all humans. We all need help. We all have good days. We all have bad days. But it's how you navigate them is the key. Like in like your research and talking to people, and especially now since you've written Success Complex and all the conversations, like I said, people who are struggling and trying to find where to go. Like, what have you found have been the most common kind of excuses or justifications as to why they are where they are?
Well, that's an interesting question. Personally, I tend not to challenge the people in terms of why they haven't done this or that, because that, I think that comes from a place of judgment.
Mm,
I'd rather try and come from a place of positivity, and no matter who you speak to, they've all done things that are genuinely impressive, but just they
completely.
can't see it. They can't see it. So it's
Yeah.
about helping them see it. Say, wow, that's you've come through a lot there. It's give yourself some credit. And
Mm,
I think it starts there. It starts by helping people see that what they've done is worthwhile, and not everybody could have done it, to
yeah.
get this far.
And
And it's
probing
and
them. Yeah.
yeah, it's to find the positivity in their journey so far, and show them how they can have more of that, or how they can leverage that to get more, of what they want,
Yeah.
whatever that
That's a
might
very
be.
important point, Adrian. Like what I do when I be doing workshops and stuff, when the area, especially if it's more goal setting type things and your life vision, one of the earliest things I always do is get people to like that. Just look at your life and list everything that you would class as an actual achievement. Because for most people, if you
Mm,
ask them straight up, they go, haven't really done much. Where like say, like, don't really think, just let it kind of flow. Just let kind of just subconsciously let it flow. And people are always amazed at the things that they've done. And I'll stress
mm,
them, especially if they're in a bad place, trying to get out of that and move their life forward to some degree. Write that list and then have it somewhere very close. And every time you get a bit of self doubt or you lack your worth, grab it out and read it again. Because I think we're all probably guilty. I think it's even people who are classed as successful. If you're humble and successful, you don't really pay much attention to things. You just kind of go doing, doing, doing. And it's only when
mm,
you have conversations or people remind you of stuff or they probe you, you're going, oh, yeah, that was actually quite good. I'm sure type of person I'm sure you experience. I know I experience that quite a bit. It's when other people talk to me about stuff I've done, it's when I nearly realize stuff. But for people that said who are in a bad place, they need to realize that they have actually done things because everyone has. You can't, unless you literally sit in your ass all day and not move, you are doing something. You have to have some wins in your day every day.
yeah, exactly. And I think that is so important. And I think what was underestimated, for example, with COVID, um, the Leaving Cert, or the equivalent in England, for example, it was somebody assessing what they thought you would have gotten in an exam for
Yeah.
students that actually didn't get to sit it. I remember repeating the Leaving Cert, and if teachers had to assess what they thought I was going to get, well, I repeated the Leaving Cert, I'd be like, another 10 points, whereas I actually
Yeah.
doubled the points.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
and that alone, talk about small wins and momentum, nobody could ever take that away from me no matter what happened next. That was
Yeah.
done. Nobody else did that. I did
Like
that.
that had to
And that
give
was,
you massive belief because that's a
it did.
huge jump. Like for people who don't know leaving
Yeah.
cert, like to other countries or whatever, like
Mm.
that's massive. One was it 190 to 330, you said, wasn't it?
3:30, yeah, exactly.
That's some
So,
jump, like.
yeah, and I haven't, I'm not being braggadocious here at all, but I'm genuinely curious. I haven't heard a lot of people jump like that on repeating.
Very
But it
true.
was a very, very low base, of course, but it just showed how a shift in mindset absolutely changed the outcome completely. Not a
Yeah.
little, completely. And I think that I never forgot that, and it's just about building from there. So I think for people that are listening that wonder where to start, it's about, first of all, looking at giving themselves credit for what they've done. Secondly, it's about getting those small wins under your belt, and building from there, and be kind and patient to yourself. There's not enough of that. Everything is like, can be a bit tough love out there, as in, oh,
Yeah.
you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be this fit, you should be. The standard
100%.
online out there is so high.
Yeah,
If you want to Google somebody that does something better than you, you can do that in less than 5 seconds. You'll find somebody who does better,
exactly.
anything better than you.
Yeah, like it's
But
comparison culture. Like everything's
yeah,
comparison, and there's nothing worse than that. And I
yeah,
same with people. Like I always say, stop the comparing. The only thing you compare is you with you. It's like with
mm,
yourself. Second leaving cert versus first leaving cert. Direct comparison. You clearly did better. That's just
mm,
fact. It's like
mm,
someone who's making any improvements in their life over a even 6 month period. At 6 months later, are you in a better position now than you were at that time? Unless again you've literally done zero, you have to be better. So at least you can move forward. So focus on that, and
that's right.
stop focusing on the speed of it. Like it's so much conditioning and pressure around that. Everything's like so fast, and it's about
Yeah,
reactiveness. Even social media and messages, everything's about immediate responses, success so fast. When that's not the reality. Like things take time and they take consistency. And I always say
yeah,
people achieving success in any aspect of life, that's not actually hard. Like it's just taking fairly reasonably logical steps. The hard part is consistency of the discipline. That's the
it
hard
is.
part. Not the
It
what you have
is.
to do, it's the actual bloody doing it. So
That's
that's where when people can get that mindset shift away from looking for magic bullets and so instead just go, what's the next tiny step I can take? And just
yeah.
do that. Even if every 24 hours took a tiny step, life's going to change dramatically.
That's right. That's right. No, totally.
Mm.
So then in terms of writing the book, I mean, my approach was kind of like a pyramid. You kind of have a base to build upon, which you need to start with. And I believe a good place to start was to investigate core skills of successful people. What do they do and what do they do well? And what makes all the difference? And I start off with a chapter called um, imagining the impossible, and that's just about a mindset shift. It's about rescuing the kids in the cave in Thailand. That underwater rescue and how that happened, and how um, they, they imagined an ideal solution, and they kind of I talk about casting their mind across an imaginary bridge to the other side, not wondering what the bridge looked like to get there, but wondering what the ideal outcome would be, and then reverse engineering that outcome. And that's kind of how they came up with that solution in terms of rescuing those kids. They put them under general anesthetic, which had never been done before, and it's just a remarkable story, and it fascinated me.
Yeah.
But what fascinates me most is the ability to cast their mind beyond immediate obstacles to an ideal outcome, and then figure out that path backwards. And I think that works well for me anyway.
So is that like the first step of the book then that you encourage people to do? Like create
That's the
that
first chapter.
vision, no
Yes,
obstacles, not just what is the vision I want, all things going well, basically.
exactly. Push aside the
Brilliant.
clutter and imagine where you would like to be with things. Which is, by the way, it can be tough because we
Oh,
go, oh
big
no,
time. Yeah.
that can be really really energy draining. But
That's what I
again,
was going to say to you, Adrian, that
mm,
like that's brilliant. That's definitely the right thing to do. But people find that so hard to do because they're
yeah,
immediately going into obstacle mode and kind of
that's right.
realistic mode. Like any kind of
Mm.
tips you give people to like try and break that down. So they're trying to, I said, right above that and literally go ambitious vision, real out there vision of what they really want versus, as I said, blockers they're putting in front of themselves.
Well, my tip is if they find it hard to imagine, they might be trying to imagine the wrong thing. So, maybe it's not imagine yourself driving a Ferrari, and
Yeah.
and more, imagine what makes you happy now, and just how you can get more of that into your life, whether that's better and deeper relationships, whether it's, just more freedom of time to spend in a way that you want. It can be as simple as that. And I do get to direction in the book and what they aim for and how they aim for it. But at the base of it all is about, you know, trying to cut away things that limit our potential. And so mindset is one. Secondly, defining potential is the second chapter in the book. I'm not going to show every chapter, but I think these are really important.
Yeah,
Defining
sure.
potential because society will try and define your potential. I think there's an implicit definition of where
Yeah.
you're from, how far you'll go, are you getting above your station, whatever it is. But when you actually dig into it, and I dug into how we measure potential, like through IQ tests, EQ tests, and so on and so forth, you'll actually find that there's no way of measuring potential. because IQ tests and EQ tests do not measure creativity. They do not measure social skills. They do not measure your ability to get on with other people. You know, the X factor, charisma of actually making people laugh, whatever it might be. And that is the woven fabric of society. To get on in life is about winning together. It's about relationships ultimately. Anything is. And we can't measure that. There's no psych test that you can take that will measure that for you. And that chapter entirely debunks that. And actually, I go so deep into the weeds. I look at how IQ tests were invented. They were actually invented by a guy called Albert Binet back at the beginning of the 19th century. And they were actually designed for something completely different. They were designed to find inadequacies and flaws with the French educational system. That's what the IQ test was to find. And then it became something completely different. It was about trying to define how smart people were.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been completely misused, misunderstood, and used as almost as a constraint rather than any sort of measure, you know. So I
But
think
that's
that's a
all
part
such
of
an
it.
important point, Adrian. Like all of that is, again, like there's countless examples, whether it be in sport or music or TV or movies, of people from, like, it's like, take Ireland, small little towns, and like that, no hopers, rubbish at school. But like that, rubbish at school often means creative. It's just that's not being harnessed. But like that, they believed in themselves and they became global superstars. Like there's so many, it's especially amazing with Ireland, such a small country, that there has been quite a lot of successful people in each of the areas. But it shows again, they got rid of their limits and they were literally unlimited, despite, as you said, the societal constraints or being branded or boxed off as this is where you're going. Like they destroyed all that. There's so many examples.
Totally, totally. And like they're developed by psychometricians who are academics, you know, with PhDs and the kind of number
Yeah.
crunchers, and you know, but you can't put a measure on actually enjoying somebody's company, and
Mm-hmm.
that's actually such an important quality in business.
Mm-hmm.
As in, you know, you'd find a lot of successful business people are just people you'd like to have a beer with, like they're actually good crack. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all relationships. Like
Yeah,
business is definitely relationships, but life in general is. So it's everything's about
yeah,
relationships, you know. That's key. We're social beings anyway. That's the thing about being
absolutely.
human. But in business it's really crucial.
Absolutely. And the third quick story I'll tell you, the other chapter in the book is increasing your luck, and it's kind of provocative. How can you increase luck? So kind of, you know, you're either lucky or unlucky, some people would think. But luck in many ways is about capitalizing an opportunity, available opportunity. And then we have to be prepared to capitalize. So preparation is everything. And uh, a principal of a local school here in Clonus actually told me a story. We run the Dragon's Den program you mentioned there for kids, which is great fun, and we really enjoy that. Um, but I was writing the book, and she told me, "Oh yeah, you know, when I was growing up in Belfast back in the early '80s, there was this bicycle in the window, and there's no way I could have afforded this bicycle, but I was obsessed with this bicycle. You know, it had the ribbons and whatever else, and it turned out that it was being raffled, and I think it was crazy prices, one of these stores, and she found out she was only 10 at the time. Her and her younger sister, who was 8, she found out that how you entered the draw was you fill out a form and you had to enter a catchphrase or finish this tagline: shop at crazy prices because. And a lot of people who did their shopping kind of discarded these in the packing area because it was too much effort. You're busy, you're doing a shop, and they didn't bother filling them out. And she would go in and quietly fill them out and sign her name on them, you know, and put them in before they were cleared away. So I thought that was really interesting for a couple of reasons. Um, which I'll get to in a second, but her perseverance was really rang true for me because she lived 2 miles away from the shop, and she walked with her younger sister in Belfast in 1983, which wasn't the safest city to be wandering
Yeah, for
around as a
sure.
child, in Dunmurry, which is a very depressed part of Belfast. For 2 months, she walked every day and filled out about 20 of these forms a day and won the bicycle.
Very
And I just
good.
thought it was such a great story because talk about an impossible dream. There's no way she could afford this. How was she going to position herself for success? She needed an element of luck. What was she going to do? She was going to increase um, the odds in her favor. And that's all we can ever do in life is
Yeah.
stack the odds in your favor as much as you can. And I thought the skills she employed were really instructive in the sense that observation. First of all, she saw that they were being discarded and people weren't filling them out.
Mm.
Timing, you know, she was able to get in there and fill them out without people raising too much of an eyebrow or without the shopkeepers clearing them away and restacking them. Um, Also, pure neck, as in she had the ability. She was willing to be reprimanded if she was caught. She was like, it's worth the risk, to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and ultimately, I think most important of all, that stick to itness, which I talk a lot about in the book, the ability just to persevere, to show up every day. And a lot of business and luck and opportunity is simply about showing up. Say that, yeah, I'm available to do this, and trust me to do it. And working towards something that consistently absolutely drives remarkable results for any of your listeners. I think that's just such an important lesson, and that we can learn from a 10-year-old. And she's done
Yeah.
super well since.
That's a fair play. But like again, like
Mm,
that's consistency, perseverance, resilience, not just have when you have the door shut and you don't pay any attention, find another door or under it, over it, to the side of it or something. There's always a way. You can go back
that's
into
right.
your story to law. You found some way. As even though you're around people who they were going to a certain level, your vision was a way higher level altogether. For you, it was
Mm,
an end. For theirs, it was the end. Complete that course, get the resulting job, and that's where it was. Whereas
yeah,
where maybe it wasn't going to lead where you hoped, you took the chance it was going to, and you're going to give it everything you could. And that's again what people need to do again is have to develop the resilience, and most importantly, again, be consistent. Like it doesn't matter what it is in life, if you're not consistent, you're not going to get there. Like you can't, it's just stop start. And usually you're either growing or you're dying in that type of way. So
that's
if you
right.
do nothing, you're going backwards. Like at a cellular level, that's the way we are, and that's just how it is in life. That's why it's important for people to always challenge themselves in some way. It doesn't have to be anything monumental, but in some way. You're always growing in some way. It could be just 5 minutes on something like Duolingo learning a language a day. Like it's still something
Mm,
that's testing you. And it's just trying to identify which area in my life do I most want or need to progress or improve or change. And then, okay, what do I need to? And then just take those steps. Like we said earlier, it's not about giant leaps, but taking small little steps and you'll get there eventually.
that's right. Totally, totally. And I did a presentation this morning on this stuff to a business group, on calling I call it your priority window, as in there's the movie Apollo 13.
Yeah.
Where Tom Hanks is trying, their navigation system is down. There's no power in the pod, and they're trying to plot their re-entry course to Earth, and it has to be has to be correct, or else they're going to burn up in the atmosphere, whatever it is. And he figures out that if he can keep the Earth in this little window, then he'll be on the right trajectory. So they burn the fuel, and they get a burst of power, and all he has to do is try and keep the Earth in the window. And I read a book recently called The Five Types of Wealth, and he refers to this very scene. And I just thought it was very powerful when we talk about direction in life, because as you mentioned at the start, there's all sorts of things worth pursuing, and wealth can be defined in many ways. Social wealth in terms of our network and the depth of relationships, mental health, physical health, financial health. There's a number of different types of wealth, but if we can find a touchstone, and keep it in that priority window for each of those types of wealth, whether it's carving out time for family. There's a story about every Tuesday evening I meet my family, and I always have dinner together, whatever else, regardless of how busy the week is, that sort of stuff. If we keep that in our priority window, we won't go too far around, and there's a couple of rules around it. So that was the talk I did this morning. I thought it was quite interesting.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, so and that kind of is very much the tenor of the direction in the success complex. Um, and there's, between the first part and the second part of the book, activity being the skills required to overcome challenge. Then what's not talked about enough sometimes is balance, as in we can work very hard and burn out. And how I bridge kind of those two parts of the book is with a guy called Marty Fish, who was US tennis number one back in 2012, tennis player, and he had remarkable success for a period of time. He went from 123 in the world to number seven over a 2-year period. And he describes in the documentary, which is on Netflix, called Breaking Point, all the sacrifices he made. And sacrifice isn't a word that a lot of people are that accustomed to anymore, but it takes sacrifice. You have to give up something to get something at times, but it's usually a very worthwhile trade. But he started going to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening. He trained all the hours that God sent. The fitter he got, the more he trained. He slept in an oxygen tank. All these really extreme things, but it drove results. But what it didn't drive was long-term success, because he burnt out in 2012, and he never really played tennis again after that. After that moment. And in the book, I did an interview with a guy called Dr. Ken Van Summer, who's a physiologist, and I said, well, if he was your athlete, what advice would you have given him in 2012 when he was about to burn out, or when the signs were there, you know? And very interestingly, and this is kind of the tenor of the second part of the book, great effort must be balanced with adequate recovery. You know, it's an always on culture at the moment with phones and this, you know, social media and
No
expectations and
escape nearly.
targets.
If you
No
don't
escape.
have
Yeah.
controls or discipline, there is literally no escape.
There's no escape. You know, so sometimes we're not getting the right sleep, we're not eating right, we're not, you know, we're just not getting our own time to allow ourselves to heal and recover. So the harder we push, the more seriously we must take our recovery. You know, I
Mm.
think so. I think success is about being serious about recovery, because
Mm.
athletes, you know, as we get into the age of it, the Olympics, for example, has got so scientific now in terms of preparation that um, athletes know that recovery is everything when it comes
Yeah.
to pushing hard. And similarly in the business world or academia, wherever you are, whatever you're trying to do, you know, you just got to get serious about allowing that recovery and that time for yourself, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's such an important message, and it is
Mm,
so not talked about, and it needs to be talked about. Like I think
mm,
last week maybe I saw a quick little interview with like Cristiano Ronaldo. Like he's 40, nearly 41. He's still playing at a high level, still playing for Portugal. And he was
mm,
saying if he does 2 hours of hard training, he's doing 2 hours of recovery. So it
yeah,
has to match. Like his life has been he's at the highest level. Like he's either the best player ever or second best, depending. Everyone's torn.
yes,
But
yes.
whichever it is, he's at the top. And he's been at the top now for 20 years. But his life has been built around being the best athlete he can be. But that has been paired with needing to recover the best he can. So everyone's, whether it be cold plunges and sleep and saunas and the food, and everything's been built around. That's why he's had longevity. Whereas a lot of players typically like that, they burn out 32, 33, maybe 34. The vast majority, it's actually rare to go beyond that. So you see, like him, he's still thriving and still at an incredible level, incredible physique because of the recovery. And it was
That's
interesting to
right.
see him mention that, because I've rarely, 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 if ever, seen someone talk about recovery that directly. Again, this is
Mm,
my input. Now I need to recover enough to balance the two out. And like that's why what you're saying here is such an important message. Because again,
mm,
society is about just drive, 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 and just keep pushing on. And there's that pressure, there's that hamster wheel existence. And then technology has made it even faster, because even just something simple as you send someone a message, because of the blue ticks, you expect an immediate response. They might have looked at a message by accident. You know what's going on, but your brain's thinking, why are you not responding to me? So people feel the pressure on the other side then as well to respond. So everyone's in this kind of pressure cooker, not just in the doing all the time, and not
that's right.
recovering. And it's like even like the talk you were saying this morning, which is great. It's like that, where's the time for you? Where's your time for your time out?
That's
Drive for
right.
stuff, yeah, but where's your time out time?
That's right. That's right. And sometimes, you know, that is a very, very powerful form of wealth, isn't it? You know, that ability to control your own time, even to some extent, where you, and we talked at the start about setting goals and imagining something that you wanted. Well, how about imagining that you were in more control of your time?
Mm,
Like that's real wealth now,
mm,
because time did you not make any more of it. You could be a
yeah,
billionaire, but you can't
yeah,
buy any more time back.
yeah,
That's the commodity. So it's
yeah.
how you spend that time really the most important decision we'll ever make.
And that's it. And it moves so fast, like, and it definitely feels like it's going faster, but it's like
Yeah,
it's so precious, and that's an important thing for people. Again, it's like pressing stop. People need to press stop, and it's really important. And
that's right.
again, reflect, what do I actually want? Am I even on the right course? And like that, take control of your life, because you can. When you work with someone, you work for yourself. You can take control and make sure, again, there's time for what matters. There'll be time for you, could just go for a walk in nature once a week for an hour in a local forest or something like that. Or like that, where it'd be time if you've got kids or a partner or whoever's important to you. But most importantly, making time for yourself. And again, that's recovery. It's like wave, which is great, breath work and all that kind of stuff, yoga, Pilates, these things are growing all the time, and more acceptance, I suppose you'd call it, especially the breathwork one and cold plunging and that type of thing. And that's great, because again, it's all around recovery, and you haven't to press stop. And just people need to grasp all of that more and more.
That's right. And just to add on the recovery thing, which I found quite interesting, and we're always learning. There's a device you can wear, a monitor, which I did for 3 days, that Dr. Ken Van Summeren had sent me, and a lot of the athletes wear this device, and it's to monitor whether you're in recovery or not. And
Mm.
sometimes you could be sitting on the couch watching TV and you're not in recovery because you're thinking about something and maybe worrying about something and it's on your mind. Whereas I could be doing preparing a PowerPoint or writing whatever else, and I'm in really good quality recovery. So much so that I'm in the same state of recovery as if I was asleep, sound
Yeah.
asleep. And
Yeah.
so the good news for people that are, like activity, you can identify recovery activities. Um, it's a bit like the Kenyan runners, when they're really great runners, but when they're on their days off, they might go for a light jog. They're not doing nothing, but they know what their body needs.
Yeah.
And it's never just about sitting around doing nothing, which can be stressful, when
Of
you're thinking about
course.
all the
Certain
things you should be doing.
mindset. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's learning about ourselves. We don't come with a care label, like the teddy bear with the care label.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so we have to write our own care label, and that comes from exploration, reading, learning, and exploring what works best for us. Um, so the other aspect that I cover in the book, and this is something that probably is rarely found in this type of book, I talk about morality in the sense that of our moral compass and how we can lose our way both as individuals and collectively, and how it's important to keep in mind our due north when we make decisions. Talk about Nick Gleason and Jordan Belfort, and then I talk about Purdue Pharma, the opioid crisis, talk about Goldman Sachs, how decisions are made, how cultures can corrupt individuals, etc., 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 which is an interesting area. But it goes hand in hand with success because if you think about success, lots of smart, hardworking, brilliant people have just made bad decisions, and it's gone off track. And I saw them in my criminal days when I was a criminal defense solicitor. And then ultimately the book has, so it's 7 chapters on skills, 5 chapters on balance, and 3 chapters on direction. We've talked about the types of wealth, and I wanted to pick 3 types of direction that might be worth exploring. And this part of the book's called congruence. So I call it ABC. So activity being what skills, B for balance, C for congruence, which brings it all together, as in what do we want more of in our lives. And I picked 3 things, which were control. We talked about time, as in just having a little bit more control of our lives, and how being out of control or perceiving yourself to be out of control can be incredibly stressful and actually can shorten your life in a dramatic way. That sense of just not having any control. Purpose, as in how to um, I would say develop purpose, because it's more to self-explore and unravel what purpose is meaningful to each of us. And then finally, transcendence. And I talk about transcendence in the sense, not in the religious sense, but more, we've all probably heard of Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, and the top of that hierarchy was actual self-actualization. But just before he died, he said, actually, I was wrong about that. He wrote it in his personal diaries. He said, was actually there's a higher purpose than self-actualization, being all we can be to ourselves, and that's transcendence, and that's how we can step outside ourselves and do things for others. He felt was the greatest evolution of man or woman, which I thought was interesting. So I
Yeah.
explored that a little bit in terms of if when we talk about the meaning of success. And I kind of finish up with the story of Chris McCandless, Into the Wild, that movie which Sean Penn directed it, where the guy tries to cut himself off society, ends up in Alaska. The poor guy ends up starving to death. He's cut off from the world. And his very final journal entry is, happiness is not real unless shared. And I took that a step further and I said, success is not real unless shared. As in, we have to start learning to win together on this small planet as a human race. It's not
Totally.
a zero-sum game. And the more we try to win in a zero-sum fashion, the more we ultimately lose, or certainly the generations that come behind us lose. So, it's from a philosophical perspective, we start off with how we can get success for ourselves, how we can sustain that success, but then kind of interrogate what success is anyway. And for me, it's about that shared success, and that also comes back to the conversation we had earlier about defining potential. Because if we're going to be successful together, then the skills that really matter are the skills that bring us together, and they're skills that are very hard to measure. And indeed, they're the skills I think that you do see in super successful people. That ability to, you know, you know, bring people, motivate people, and just enjoy other people's company for what it is. Not trying to get anything out of anybody else.
Yeah. And I get the most potential of each individual. So even take
Yeah.
like the sports teams, the best managers and most successful teams hasn't always and often isn't the most talented one, but it's more the players have good attitudes and work hard and so on, but the manager then knows how to individualize in terms of putting the arm around someone, kick up the arse for another one, what he says to them collectively, but they work as a unit, even like the support staff. So they're all a unit versus, right, I'm the best player in the world type idea, and you kind of come with me, because that never works. It's like even, say, Paris Saint-Germain would be a good example at the moment for people into football, where they had the three supposed best players in the world as their front line, and they were rubbish. Now, in the last few years, new managers come in and got rid of all superstars, brought in people who were willing to work and learn and play as a team, and they were basically unbeatable last season and won everything. So, it's like that. There's no I in team, as I said. And that applies, like you said, to business, life, everything.
That's right. Well, it worked for them last night against Tottenham, anyway.
Yeah, I was wondering what was going on. I only was checking on the phone because I was busy. And I was like, what was going on? Especially after Chelsea beat them a week ago. But they won in the end. Tottenham did it, Tottenham. That's the only thing. But
that is that's it very much in an overview.
Yeah, it's great. And the great thing I like to Adrian does, there's so much stuff there that you've shared and in the book that is not commonly said, but it needs to become normalized. Conversations like that, even just to balance. There is conversation about balance more than before, but it's still the wrong kind of conversation. Everyone has their own version of balance. Like balance, you could be someone who genuinely loves to work 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, and once you've 1 day off. I might want to do 4 days intensive and 3 days off. It's down to what do you want? What's balance for you? So we still need to individualize things as opposed to just this is how it works. And that's the narrative kind of now at the moment. Balance at least is getting coverage, which is great, but it's nearly getting coverage in the wrong way, giving the wrong message, and nearly adding to the pressure for people. So I like the kind of angles you have on things, and they're really powerful. And it's just getting these messages out there. And this is where, again, we're the messengers. It's up to people to actually put that into action. But they're very powerful messages. And, it's great. I love that kind of mentality. It's very, again, in line with my own mentality, which is, why we connected well, So congrats on the book. Like, it's amazing. It's just getting it out there. And I know you're passionate about sharing it out there and sharing the principles. And like today doing the talk, or like now being on this, like you're truly coming from a point of service. Like you want to make a mark, but in the right way and help people. Same as giving away the book for free. When you meet someone, it's just, I want to help people because it comes back anyway. It's good energy. You don't have to be out there searching for success. If you give it the right intentions, it has to come. Just, you don't know when or in what form, but it's definitely coming.
That's right. And for people that are, just thinking about making those first few steps for whatever matters to them, I think they'll, to go ahead and do it, because they'll be very surprised, first of all, what they're capable of doing themselves, and secondly, the supports that are available out there, and if they're not getting support, then, that will tell you something as well, and perhaps about the circle that you have, and maybe it's about time to seek out more positive people, more supportive people that are more in line with what you want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, hugely important. I always speak of like audit your circle regularly, because like that, if people aren't adding to your life, and especially if they're taken from it, you need to have a serious conversation with yourself about, okay, do I need to limit exposure, move them away, or even potentially completely eliminate, whether it be permanently or short term? Because at the end of the day, your own energy, your emotional state, all that's going to determine where you're going to go in life. And with the best will in the world, if you have the wrong people around you, it's like chains holding you back. But you're going to just stay in that mindset, As I say, you become the same as the 5 people you hang around with most. It's so true. You see it all the time. And we all have it from our own lives, where people were around successful people or people who were just doing nothing, as much as people who weren't great people who were like, doing all the wrong things, So everyone can kind of relate to that. And it's something people need to keep going back to. And just to do that, literally just audit your circle and make the necessary changes, which sometimes is hard and it's tough emotionally, but you get one shot, so you want to make a good shot at it. So, it's a key part of all that journey then.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And I'm all for giving people chances, and been very clear about expectations. But again, we all need support. It's not all roses. It never is. So you need people who are in your corner and willing to, help you out when you're stuck and whatever else,
Always. Again, like I said, to start a roller coaster. And same for everybody. No one gets a straight line existence. So that doesn't exist. So we all have a roller coaster. It depends how you navigate it. And to get the book, basically, where's the best place for the book, or where can you find out more about you?
Well, it's available in many bookshops, from Waterstones, Easton's. and a variety of other hard copy bookshops, but it's also available, I suppose, on Amazon and various other book outlets as well, and on Audible as well in terms of the online version or the audio version. And then I have a couple of podcasts as well. I have 3 podcasts that accompany the book, and they're on Spotify. And if you search for The Success Complex, you'll find those on Spotify as well. And they're interviews of people that were in the book, just 3 of those.
Brilliant.
And that's my contribution for the moment in terms of the
Yeah.
literary world. But
And what's the website, Adrian? 'Cause the website's really good. A lot of good stuff.
yeah, this website is askmore.ie, as in ask more of yourself, ask more of life. And for me, I like that name because it starts with asking more of yourself. It's we've got to ask, like, what are we capable of, and push ourselves a little bit. That's the starting point. Develop that momentum, and good things can happen.
Yeah, and just take a positive step, and off you go. Like climbing the stairs, you have to take the first step to get to the top. Otherwise, you definitely not get to the top. So
Absolutely.
It's every small step matters. Well, Adrian, it's been fantastic, and look, a lot of great information, a lot of great nuggets, a lot of great stories. You have a wonderful journey there, and you're doing amazing work, and you're coming from the right place, which is the most important thing. So I want to thank you so much for your time, because again, I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate the fact you've prioritized coming on here and recording this episode.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
So, guys, as I said at the very start, knowledge is not power, it's implementation. Knowledge is power. And in the last hour or so, you've got a lot of great nuggets. Should have a lot of inspiration and some motivation there as well, I'm sure. So make sure you go out and take action. All I want you to do is think about the next positive step you could take. Just one. It could be something that'll take you 20 seconds, or it might take you an hour. That's irrelevant. Just what's one positive step you could take, and then go out and make that happen. And I can guarantee you it will empower you, and then that will lead to more momentum, and then on you go. And just keep seeing things that way, small steps. We've said it many times in this particular episode. Take small steps. Stop looking for the giant magic leaps, because there is no magic leap. It's about consistency. That's the key. That's the key word. So, guys, hope you enjoyed it. And please let me know the feedback. Leave comments. Share this out there. Help us get this episode out there far and wide. People need these messages. There isn't anyone out there who doesn't need some bit of inspiration, motivation, or just like a little tip and nugget that you get from every one of these episodes. So, help us to share it out there. Make sure you subscribe, because it does help with the algorithm and all those things that we're battling all the time for exposure. So take care, guys, and chat to you in the next episode.